I walked into the annual family fundraiser, expecting nothing more than polite smiles and forced civility, the kind we all practiced once a year. But the moment I stepped across the threshold, I felt it. Whispers followed me like shadows. Conversations dipped, eyes slid toward me and away again. The air felt tight, expectant, as if the room itself knew something I didn't. My relatives stood together in a neat little cluster. They looked polished, rehearsed. Their smiles were sharp, not warm. Their eyes weren't on me with affection. They were scanning the room, counting faces, counting witnesses. I realized then this wasn't a gathering. It was a setup. The microphone crackled. The sound cut through the chatter like a blade. My cousin leaned into it, her voice coated in artificial sweetness. "Aunt Linda," she said, drawing my name out slowly as if tasting it. Every head turned. The spotlight didn't move, but I felt it land on me anyway.
Behind her, the screen lit up. Emails, messages, screenshots stripped of context and stitched together with malice. My words rearranged, my decisions twisted. They painted me as careless with money, reckless with responsibility, deceitful with family trust. Each slide landed like a slap. Laughter rolled through the room, too loud, too eager. Accusations were inflated, turned into punchlines for entertainment. People I had hugged, helped, protected were now smiling at my supposed downfall. I felt heat crawl up my neck, into my cheeks. That old instinct surged in me, the urge to stand up and explain myself, to beg them to understand, to fight back with words. A voice cut through the noise. Someone shouted a question, sharp and accusing, designed to trap me no matter how I answered. All eyes locked onto me, waiting for a reaction, waiting for me to crack. My hands shook. I could feel it, the tremor begging to be seen. I folded them together tightly in front of me, nails pressing into skin, grounding myself. I would not give them my fear. I would not give them the satisfaction. I noticed the phones then. Dozens of them, held high, lenses pointed straight at me, recording every second of my humiliation for later replay, for likes, for gossip, for proof that I had been publicly broken. The room smelled of spilled wine and heavy perfume. It was strange what my mind clung to in that moment. The sweetness in the air made my stomach turn. I knew I would remember that smell forever, the same way people remember smoke after a fire. My heart pounded so loudly, I was sure others could hear it. Thump after thump, drowning out their voices, their laughter, their cruelty. I stood there, breathing through it, feeling every eye on me. And then I made my choice. I said nothing. I let the accusations hang in the air, unanswered. I let the silence stretch, thick and uncomfortable. My calm wrapped around me like armor, smooth and unbreakable. They wanted tears. They wanted excuses. They wanted chaos. I gave them stillness. And in that stillness, something shifted, though they didn't realize it yet. I remembered the beginning, long before the whispers and microphones, back when no one else would open their doors to them. When they were drowning in excuses and unpaid bills, I let them into my home, into my life, telling myself family meant showing up even when it hurt. I drained my savings to help rebuild their failing business. Money I had put aside for my own security disappeared into their promises. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself loyalty would be returned. I told myself love didn't need contracts. Hi. They spoke about partnership as if it were already written in stone. "We're in this together," they said, smiling across the table. Nothing was ever put on paper. I trusted words instead of protection, believing blood made honesty automatic. Night after night, I stayed awake balancing accounts while the house slept. Numbers blurred as exhaustion settled into my bones. I fixed mistakes I didn't make, covered gaps I didn't cause, telling myself this was what support looked like. Upstairs, they slept peacefully, confident someone else was carrying the weight. At family dinners, laughter filled the room, but it always carried an edge. Jokes landed just a little too close, teasing my seriousness, my caution, my control. Everyone laughed and I smiled along, swallowing the discomfort, pretending I didn't feel myself shrinking. The first time I noticed money missing, my chest tightened. I brought it up gently, carefully, already apologizing with my tone. They brushed it off as an accounting error, laughed it away. I wanted to believe them. I needed to believe them. My fear of confrontation ran deep, planted in childhood lessons that taught me obedience was survival. Don't question, don't challenge, keep the peace. That voice echoed every time doubt crept in, reminding me that silence was safer than conflict. I had felt cruelty before. Years earlier, a different public embarrassment had taught me how quickly people turned when weakness showed. That memory stayed with me, a quiet scar I never showed, shaping how carefully I moved through the world. Still, my loyalty to family overpowered every warning sign. Each red flag was folded away, labeled temporary, manageable, forgivable. I told myself sacrifice was proof of love, even as it cost me pieces of myself. Then came the moment clarity pierced denial. I realized affection was being rationed, approval given only when I complied. Love had become leverage, support was conditional. My value depended on how useful I remained. Isolation grew slowly. Conversations happened without me. Decisions were made in rooms I wasn't invited into. Stories about me circulated, polished and incomplete until I barely recognized myself in them. They controlled the narrative, and I felt myself disappearing inside it. But somewhere beneath the silence and swallowed anger, something hardened. A quiet resolve took shape long before that night on the stage. I didn't announce it. I didn't share it. I carried it alone, steady and patient, waiting for the moment when calm would become my greatest weapon. After the fundraiser, my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Message after message poured in, each one sharper than the last. People demanded explanations I was never given the chance to offer. Some were curious, others were accusatory, already convinced I was guilty. My relatives didn't wait for facts. They took the story online, polishing it into something ugly and convincing. Posts appeared with my name tagged, mutual contacts pulled into the spectacle. Comments piled up, strangers judging me based on half-truths and carefully cropped screenshots. I watched my reputation unravel in real time. Soon after, the invitations stopped. Meetings I once organized, agendas I once set, suddenly moved forward without me. I found out afterward through forwarded emails and awkward apologies. The exclusion wasn't subtle, it was deliberate. When I tried to review financials, access was blocked. Passwords changed, statements delayed, excuses delivered with false concern. The numbers I once managed freely were now locked away from me, as if I were the threat. I asked for transparency, calmly, professionally. The response came back dripping with sarcasm. "Why so defensive?" one message read. Another joked about my control issues. They wanted to provoke me, to make me react, to validate the story they were telling. Then an email arrived from an address I didn't recognize. No name, no greeting, just a warning. It hinted at manipulation far beyond embarrassment, suggesting the public shaming was only the surface of something darker. My pulse quickened as I reread it, understanding dawning slowly and painfully. I started documenting everything, every message, every delay, every discrepancy. Dates lined up, numbers didn't. Patterns emerged where excuses had been. What felt like chaos began to form a shape. A former employee reached out quietly, hesitant but concerned. They shared receipts, copies of transactions I had never authorized. Their words were careful, afraid, but the evidence was clear. I wasn't imagining it. I hadn't failed them. I had been used. The anger didn't consume me. It sharpened me. The fog of self-doubt lifted, replaced by focus and intention. I stopped reacting emotionally and started thinking strategically. Deadlines closed in as rumors continued to spread. Pressure mounted from every side. But I didn't rush. I let them believe I was overwhelmed. I let them underestimate my patience. Behind the scenes, I consulted quietly, learning my rights, my options, the strength of what I held. I asked the right questions and revealed nothing. No warnings, no threats. The storm gathered around me, loud and dramatic, just the way they liked it, and I stood still at its center, letting it build, knowing exactly when I would finally let it break. The phone rang late at night, the kind of call that cuts through exhaustion. I almost ignored it. When I answered, the voice on the other end was steady, familiar, grounded. A retired auditor I had known for years, someone who understood numbers the way doctors understand pulses. I told him everything in one breath, then sent the documents I had been holding on to. He didn't take long. His silence while reviewing felt heavier than panic. Then he spoke carefully, deliberately. He told me he recognized patterns, not mistakes, not misunderstandings, patterns of fraud woven through the records I had trusted. He offered to review everything. No fees, no conditions. "Stay calm," he said firmly, as if he could hear my heart racing. "Let me do what I know how to do." His confidence steadied me in a way nothing else had. Together, line by line, we uncovered the truth. Forged signatures, funds redirected into accounts I had never approved, transactions masked as routine expenses. Each discovery felt like a door slamming shut behind my fear. That was when it hit me. The public humiliation wasn't random. It wasn't emotional. It was strategic. A preemptive defense meant to discredit me before the truth surfaced. They hadn't acted out of confidence. They had acted out of desperation. The fear I had carried for months dissolved into something sharper: clarity, control. I stopped responding to messages, stopped engaging with bait disguised as concern. Silence became my discipline. I prepared everything meticulously, every document labeled, every timeline cross-checked. I imagined their denials before they spoke them and built proof that anticipated every excuse. There would be no room for interpretation. A certified letter was drafted, precise and unyielding, but I didn't send it yet. Timing mattered. I held it like a loaded truth, waiting. Inside me, the power shifted quietly. Nothing outward changed, but I felt it settle into place. I was no longer reacting. I was directing. For the first time in weeks, sleep came easily, deep and heavy, free of spiraling thoughts. When I woke, morning light filled the room softly, not harsh or accusing, light. It felt like permission. Permission to move forward. Permission to end this on my terms. I walked into the next family meeting without armor and without apology. My posture was calm, my face unreadable. I didn't greet anyone beyond a nod. I took my seat and waited, letting the room settle into the uneasy silence they mistook for weakness. As expected, they couldn't help themselves. The accusations surfaced again, louder this time, sharpened for an audience. Words like irresponsible and betrayal were thrown around as if repetition could turn lies into truth. I listened, expression unchanged, giving them all the rope they wanted. When the noise peaked, I raised my hand slightly. "I'd like the floor," I said. My voice didn't shake. My eyes didn't drop. The room stilled, surprised by the calm they hadn't planned for. I stood and began laying everything out. Verified audits, clean timelines, bank records stamped and authenticated. Each page was projected clearly, impossible to dismiss. I didn't argue, I didn't embellish. I let the facts speak in cold, precise language. The laughter died first. Then came the gasps. Numbers contradicted every story they had told. Dates exposed deliberate manipulation. Faces drained of color as reality settled in. "I've already filed formal legal action," I said evenly, letting the words land without emphasis. "This documentation has been submitted." They tried to interrupt, voices overlapping, desperation cracking through their confidence. Every attempt was silenced by another document, another timestamp, another signature they couldn't explain away. Facts shut them down more effectively than anger ever could. I watched their narrative collapse in real time. The room shifted, alliances dissolving under scrutiny. People leaned back, reevaluating everything they had been told. A board member cleared his throat and spoke firmly. He called for immediate suspension of their roles pending investigation. The decision wasn't emotional, it was procedural, final. Insults were thrown at me then, sharp and personal, meant to wound. I didn't respond. I offered no defense, no retaliation, only documentation. Paper over noise, proof over rage. By the time the meeting ended, media attention had already shifted. Questions followed them, not me. Cameras angled away from my face and toward theirs, hungry for explanations they couldn't give. I gathered my papers, walked to the door, and left without looking back. Oh, the court confirmed what I had known all along. Misappropriation, clear liability. Every document I had painstakingly prepared became undeniable proof. The judge's gavel struck, echoing through the room like justice finally arriving. Assets were frozen, their reputations officially tarnished. No spin, no excuses could undo what the evidence had made visible. I watched the shift quietly, aware that the balance had changed forever. Through settlements and restitution, I recovered what had been taken, not just money, but dignity and control. The victories weren't flashy, they were precise, methodical, final. Apologies trickled in, whispered and belated. They arrived privately, cloaked in shame and regret. I accepted them silently, knowing the moment for public reconciliation had long passed. Family dynamics began to reset, accountability taking the place of assumption and entitlement. Roles shifted, boundaries were acknowledged. The power had changed hands, and the room knew it. I rebuilt trust, but selectively. I drew firm lines around myself, my time, my resources. Lessons learned the hard way shaped the relationships I allowed into my life. My professional standing, once questioned, was now publicly restored. Peers reached out with respect, validation replacing doubt. The narrative that had been twisted against me now reflected my competence, my integrity, my perseverance. I began mentoring others quietly, passing on what I had learned without fanfare. Not revenge, guidance, protection, empowerment, sharing the knowledge that silence and preparation could be stronger than any argument. Peace settled over my daily life, replacing the constant vigilance I had carried for months. Fear no longer dictated my movements, my decisions, my presence. I reclaimed spaces once tainted by their cruelty. My home, my office, my routines, all now mine, filled with calm instead of anxiety. Gratitude replaced bitterness. I noticed small joys, quiet victories, and the simple presence of stability. Each moment a reminder that endurance and strategy had carried me here. And in the end, silence became my reward. No speeches, no announcements, just the quiet satisfaction of knowing the truth had outlasted lies, and I had survived, unbroken, unshaken, triumphant. I sit quietly now, thinking about the months I spent holding my tongue, weighing silence against the truth I carried. Every moment of quiet came with a cost, but every word withheld preserved the clarity I needed to act when the time was right. There is a strength and restraint I never fully understood until now. The ability to breathe while chaos swirled around me, to measure each action before speaking, became my secret weapon. It was patience honed into power. To anyone watching this, I want you to understand what it means to defend your dignity when it is under attack. You don't have to shout. You don't have to fight in public. Control your narrative quietly, deliberately, with eyes wide open. Preparation matters more than reaction. Gather your facts, document every step, anticipate the lies. Let readiness guide your decisions, not the heat of the moment. Calm is a weapon few realize they hold until it's too late for others to counter. Calm can disarm even the loudest aggression. I've seen it happen. I've lived it. When they expected panic, I offered stillness. When they counted on tears, I offered proof. Silence became authority, and authority became my shield. Justice is not revenge. It is restoration. It is reclaiming what was yours without stooping to cruelty. It is proving through facts and dignity that wrongs can be righted and truth can outlast deceit. Documentation saved me. Every receipt, every email, every timestamp was a brick in the foundation of my vindication. Evidence doesn't lie, and it never sleeps. It waits patiently for the right moment to speak louder than accusations ever could. Protect your name patiently, relentlessly. Let no one else's narrative define you. Boundaries are not just lines, they are shields, and they are essential for survival. I invite you to reflect on your own boundaries. Consider where your patience ends, where your silence is strength, and where your voice must rise. Protect yourself before chaos reaches you. To those who supported me quietly, unseen but unwavering, I offer my gratitude. Your faith mattered. Your silence was a sanctuary. Your belief in the truth kept me anchored. If this story resonates with you, share it. Let it remind others that patience, preparation, and composure are not weakness. They are armor. And finally, I promise you this: composure outlasts cruelty. It endures, it prevails, and it ensures that when the storm passes, you remain standing, unbroken, and in control.